I'm Anna. I'm a professional tie-dyer. That's right, I am. And I tried out the Tulip kit. Tulip dyes are a very popular brand that you can get from any store, and I had never tried them. And so I gave it a try. I got the kit. I'm going to review everything that came in the kit, how I felt about it, the pros and the cons, what I liked, what I thought was... but let's get into it. All right, so to start off, I'm just gonna kind of show you what is in the box. So this is the 36 count one, whatever that means. It has a ton of colors in here, and you can see all the colors there on the back, and then they give you a couple of folding ideas, and on this side there's just some other projects you can do. So opening up the container, one thing I'll say is this container was really nice. It's really easy to carry around, and that's nice because if you buy stuff from Dharma, you kind of just have to keep it around in a cardboard box or something. So this little tote was actually really nice. So there's this little baggie here of some stuff, and then all of the bottles have just a little bit of dye in them, just the perfect amount so that you don't have to measure anything, which is so nice because measuring dye can be quite the hassle sometimes. So here I'm opening up this little baggie, and there are some rubber bands. I was just testing out the rubber bands to see how they are. I actually really like these rubber bands. So really good quality, really stretchy, but they're thick. They're not going to snap. So they give you plenty of rubber bands, and I like them a lot. And then the other thing we've got in here is some gloves. I tried to use these. You'll see I tried to use them filling up the containers. And after like filling up like 2, I was like, absolutely not. I need to use my own gloves. So they're kind of garbage, honestly. And then this is just a tablecloth, which I think is really nice. It came in handy. So always nice to have, you know, something that maybe you might have forgot at home. You still probably want some paper towels to absorb the liquid, but this is a pretty good quality tablecloth. So I liked it. So that's what's in the box. Oh, let's read the instructions. Here we go. I'm going to show you what's on the instructions. So it says general instructions. So it gives you some ideas of how to place the dye and how to mix the dye. Just basically how to use the kit right here. And then some warnings, of course. And then on the other side, it shows you a couple of folds you can do. So anyway, so here I'm just showing that side, the instructions a little bit better. And then here are some folds you can do. This is like the very bare minimum they could have shared about this, but you only have so much space. So they are a couple good ideas. It's not super self-explanatory. I suggest like doing your own research because you're going to get random results with that. So here I'm mixing up the dye. I'm wearing those gloves that came with the kit, and I was getting so frustrated because they're just so like baggy and slippery. So I finally just took them off and put on my regular nitrile gloves. I just get these from Costco, but you could get them from anywhere. They're just like latex gloves. One thing I'll say is mixing these up took quite a bit of time. So you'll want to give yourself a little bit of time to do this. You want to mix them up like within like 2 hours of when you're going to use them. So if you're going camping or something, you're going to want to mix them up while you're out there camping. But just give yourself a little bit of time. It took me a little bit of time. Another thing I learned too is to shake the bottle before I fill it up, because some of the dye powder kept getting stuck in the bottom of the container. Okay, so this first one, I just wanted to test the colors and see their color fastness and see how they lasted. So I just kind of squirted on just a little bit of the dye so I could see kind of how they last, how they wash out. This is probably not a project you would really I mean, you could do this if you wanted, but you would need to get a whole separate kit because you would need to redo your bottles within 2 hours of creating your project. So you wouldn't really have time to do this and then have the samples on hand. So this is mostly just for you to see what the samples would look like, and I'll show you all the end results of these at the end. All right, so for this one here, I'm finding the center because I'm gonna do just a basic spiral. You can't do tie-dye without just a basic spiral, right? So basically you're just gonna take the center there and twist it. You can see I'm using that tablecloth there. It's a good solid quality tablecloth. It's thick. None of the dye went through onto my table or anything. And I'm using the rubber band, which again, I really liked these rubber bands. So bonus points for the rubber bands. And I'm just kind of securing it around the edge there. And then I like to flip it over so that I'm working on the flat side. So I used this teal color, and you're just going to want to make wedges. And this is kind of a learning process, but you're going to want to put enough color in that it fully saturates. But you are going to flip it over, and so you don't need it to be totally saturated all the way through the bottom, but you do want enough color that it's kind of going in those folds. So here I didn't speed it up or anything, so you can see kind of how I applied the dye. And I wish I could tell you what colors I used here, but they weren't really named, and they're not really labeled on the bottles. I liked that the bottles were, the little tops were the color of the dye, which is nice. That's nice, because if you just buy like regular bottles, you need to label them somehow to know what color's in them, and makes it really easy. You can see based on the tops what color they are, but again, they're not named, so I don't know what the names of these colors are. I was just kind of playing around with teal and pink and magenta, and so that's how I did that side. Then I flipped it over, and I decided to do all black on this side. I wanted to test out the black. Black is kind of a finicky thing. Black can go blue a lot of times, or it can go gray. So I wanted to test out the black. You'll see in the final result how this ended up, but it is pretty gray, which is okay. Dharma is the same way if you mix it wrong. So there's been plenty of gray tie-dye, and it's not the worst thing in the world. But I thought I would try it out with the Tulip kit. Again, you just want to saturate it, make sure that all the fabric is saturated in the dye. All right, and there I'm just checking on the side, make sure I got the sides and the top too. All right, so then I wiped off the surface. I didn't share that part, but I did wipe off the surface. And for this one, I wanted to try Shibori. So I'm folding it, accordion folding it here, kind of a weird way of accordion folding it, but I basically just fold it hot dog style twice. And then I'm doing a flag fold here, where you fold it like a triangle along the longest edge as you fold up. I have full tutorials on Shibori folds if you want to see that. That was a very quick run through of how I do it, but that's not what this video is about. So also, I will say, don't fold your thing like this if you're doing this kit, because it turns out so ugly. Just wait for the end result. It is really quite ugly. But that's why I did it, so I could see. All right, so the colors I used here, I just used a little bit of green, and I'm glad I did because the greens wash out quite a bit. So you'll see kind of how washed out they get. Same thing as the spiral, you just want to place the dye so that it's soaking through as best as you can and totally cover the whole surface. And then on these little edges, I did some blue. Again, I'm glad I used this color because it turns out this color is actually pretty bad. It washes right out. So I'm glad I did a couple projects with this so you could see it. You'll see in the final sample as well that it just like totally faded out. And that's pretty common with turquoise, if I'm being honest. Even if you use really, really nice dyes, turquoise takes the longest to set. So when they told me in this kit that I only needed to let it sit for 4 to 6 hours, I kind of laughed. Like, there's no way. There's no way. I let it sit for 8. If I had washed it out any sooner, the colors would have been washed out even more. So I think if you want like a really solid result, I would wait at least 24 hours with these, not 4 to 6 hours. But I think they just want to give the illusion that it will be a quick craft. Okay, the other thing I did here is I did some ice dye. I wanted to see if ice dye would work. And so here I'm just putting in the dry fabric. And then there were 4 bottles of duplicate colors in the package. And so that's the 4 colors I decided to do. I'm just using store-bought ice here for this. So if you're camping or something, you can totally just use this ice you get from the gas station or whatever. Just make sure your whole fabric is covered, and then I opened the container. So these are not mixed. This is still the dry powder, and I just sprinkled on the dry powder. Know that if you are going to do this, you're going to use a lot more of the dry powder than if you're doing liquid, which is okay because this kit came with so much. Like, you don't need, I mean, I guess it matters how many people you have dyeing with you, but it was so much dye. I don't know even how many people you would need to make use of all that dye, and then not everybody would get to use the color they want because these bottles are kind of little. Anyway, so ice dye might be a good option for you as well. And so here I'm rinsing out this sample one, and the blue was bleeding pretty bad. That kind of worried me a little bit, but it does eventually wash out. So the white spaces did stay white, which is a big deal. That's something that I like to look for in my dyes, that the colors don't bleed. If you use RIT, the colors bleed like crazy, especially if you use any pink or red. You hardly have any white space left. So that is a bonus point for Tulip. So here I'm just rinsing it with my normal process where I rinse and cool, and then I bump it up to hot, and then I use some Dawn dish soap to rinse it out. So this one is the Shibori fold I did. Again, it looks like the colors are all running together, and you can see too, you'll be surprised to see like, oh wow, the color, I was really excited about this. I was like, man, the color is really color fast. It's really staying really bold and strong. It's not washing out. Well, once I did the wash cycle on it and I dried it, it very much still came out. The color still came out, which, you know, if you're just doing something for fun, it doesn't super matter. But I don't like the results personally when that happens. So here's the spiral I'm rinsing, and again, just rinsing it in cool water and then bumping it up to hot. You can see the black still looks quite black. When things are wet, they always look darker than once they dry, which makes sense, right? But it's still, you don't want to judge your project until it is completely dry, because you never know what you're going to get after the washing machine. All right, so here's the ice dye I did. I did the ice dye in the muck. That means that I let the ice melt and then I let it sit in the runoff of the ice. You can suspend it like on a cookie rack or something so the ice melts off. I have a whole video on the difference between those two things, but really, I mean, whatever you have handy is what you could do with this ice dye. I am super glad I did this experiment because this was very telling. You can see here the black and navy stayed pretty solid, the purple, but as the colors got lighter, especially this blue, the blue is pretty much completely gone. That lime green is pretty gone. So the darker colors look pretty good, except that blue. Here is the green, pink, and blue and black spiral. The black went pretty gray, but that's pretty typical. The greens are pretty much all gone because the blue comes out, the turquoise comes out. So that is the result I got there. This one is my ice dye experiment, and it turned out really pretty. It really does look quite pretty. It's completely lost the blues, so it's just yellow and pink, but it really is pretty. I guess there's a little bit of lime in there, but it turned out pretty cool. All right, this has got to be up there with one of the ugliest things I've ever created. This was a Shibori fold, so it was supposed to be triangles, and it did not work hardly at all. The purple totally ate up. It didn't really separate with the rubber bands. The blue is pretty much washed out, the green. So that did not work. First impressions. What's in the box? I have to say this kit really impressed me right out of the gate. It came with everything you need to get started. Bottles pre-filled with dye powder, rubber bands, gloves, a plastic cover, and even an instruction sheet. That's a major plus because you're not left scrambling for supplies. The amount of dye you get is pretty generous, which is great if you're planning to do a few projects or want to try different dyeing techniques like ice dyeing, which by the way works surprisingly well with this kit. More on that in a second. Okay, the packaging. I want to shout out the packaging. It was sturdy, neatly organized. Makes the whole process less intimidating. I felt like I was opening up a fun little art project rather than a chaotic mess, which definitely helps if you are a first-time dyer. Okay, so the recap of the pros. Comes with everything you need, generous amount of dye, ice dyeing works well, and thoughtful, organized packaging. So here's where it falls short. As much as I wanted to love this kit all the way through, it does have some downsides. First off, the color fastness. The colors don't hold as well as I'd hoped. Even after following the instructions carefully, I noticed the vibrancy just doesn't last, especially if you're planning to actually wear these pieces and wash them a few times. Next, the gloves. They included gloves, but they're basically the kind you find in a DIY hair kit. Thin, flimsy, and not very protective. I'd honestly recommend grabbing a sturdier pair if you want to keep your hands from turning into a rainbow. Finally, the blues. I'm not sure if this was just a weird quirk of the kit I got, but the blues faded almost completely. If you're hoping for those rich ocean-like hues, you might end up a bit disappointed. So, recap of the cons. The color fastness could be better. The gloves are garbage. And the blues fade significantly. So my final thoughts, is the kit worth it? I'd say yes. Solid choice if you're just starting out or looking for a fun little group activity. But just keep those color fastness issues in mind and maybe invest in some better gloves if you're wanting to really go all in. If you found this review helpful, please like and subscribe. Comment with any questions. Stay tuned. I've got other kit reviews coming up and I'll compare them all together. So let's talk soon. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you have any questions whatsoever, please comment below. I love to answer all sorts of questions. Also in the link below, there is a free printable just for you, 12 of my very favorite folds. It's an ebook written out just for you. All I need is your email and I'll send it right to your email. I also have an Etsy store. If you liked what was in this video, it might already be gone, but there might be something else that you love in my store. So check that out. Thank you so much for supporting me. We'll see you next time.